welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. We are switching gears in our conversation this morning to a little recapping as to what happened over, a couple weekends ago in Pigeon Point, where we had an almost unfortunate incident, if you want to call it that. I mean, I was thankful that, we didn't have a loss of life in Pigeon Point a couple weeks ago, but the situation has pointed to the need for us to reassess what happens on our beaches, reassess our response also to incidents, because we may not always be able to prevent every single incident, but our response should also be at an optimal level. So to speak to us a little bit on that, we have what I would call our resident marine expert, marine safety expert, Mr. Alvin Douglas. And of course, he's the director of the Tobago Marine and Safety Services Limited company. Sorry. Yes, right? So good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Douglas. How are you?
Morning. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right, great. So when we look at that incident, there were a couple of things that were pointed out, because when we spoke to some of the visitors, the tourists that lended their assistance and did the CPR and did the first response needed to make sure we didn't lose one of our treasured pilots. They pointed out to the fact that our lifeguards need to have continuous training, because one of them said that she never had to do CPR before, but because of her continuous training, she knew it was like muscle memory, and then she was able to just jump into action and do what was necessary. So give us your view on that, and tell us about what really happens in the lifeguard space when it comes to CPR training and that sort of thing.
Well, before I start, I need to remind people that, hindsight is always 2020. And an incident like that happened so fast that it's easy for us in the public space to dissect it and analyze and criticize the procedures. And granted, we should do it to make it better. But we shouldn't point finger or try to isolate a certain group and say, well, okay, it's your fault. We shouldn't. Incidents will happen. What we need to do is to prepare. And we have to constantly prepare. And we have to prepare based on our experience. And that is what is lacking to me personally in the marine space. When we have incidents, we don't say, well, okay, wait a minute, we didn't know this would happen. Let's do this. Okay? It is very similar to wearing a seatbelt, Before years ago, we wouldn't dare wear a seatbelt, with a seatbelt. But now, instinctively, we pull a seatbelt because it was the people, the management, the people in power says, listen, let's make it mandatory, let's make it rule, let's make it law. And then now, it's not even law now. You will be able to tell your friend, listen, you need to pull your seatbelt. It's the same thing we need to do in the public space. We need to make sure and have our professionals, our frontline professionals prepared and trained all the time. So it doesn't make sense casting blame. I'm thankful that the individual, I'm thinking that he's recovering. I don't know if that's correct.
Yes, he is recovering at this point in time.
And I tell you, emergency response or basic life support or CPR, it is a literal miracle. It means that the worst thing that could happen to you is your heart stop and somebody restart your heart for you.
Which is what happened, because, again, when we spoke to the visitors, they told us that when they checked for a pulse, he did not have a pulse.
Yeah.
But
so she performed a miracle. It is a miracle. She performed a miracle,
yes.
And we're trained, and it is easy not only for the professionals to be retrained all the time, but also we as a people should train as much of our people to respond to an incident like that.
What are the systems that are currently in place in terms of making sure our lifeguards are trained repeatedly? Because a lot of them, they would have gone through that first response training probably at the beginning of their employment, but is that happening on a continuous basis?
Now, to be absolutely honest, I don't know if they are retrained. I know that in the emergency first aid response field, every 2 years you have to do some type of retraining. I don't know if that has been happening. I am responsible for the past couple of years of training them as for dive or scuba certification to make sure that they're comfortable underwater also. But as for training, I know because I actually did the lifeguard training just before I ended up in the Coast Guard. The training is rigorous. The training changes you. The training that we did at Michael Baker is actually, to me, not only on par, but it's even a lot more strenuous and a lot more strict than the regular first response training, you know. But I don't know if they're being retrained. You know, looking at this video, one of the things I would like to highlight is when she was saying something, and this is what we need to do.
Yes.
We need to make sure we take advantage of the professionals. She was shouting that she needed a heart starter, which is a defibrillator. And a defibrillator is one of this piece of equipment that we need to make sure that we have in the public space all the time, because it makes sure it empowers the people who are non-professionals. It empowers them to be able to assist. Okay, and it's very easy to be trained in the defibrillator, because basically what the defibrillator does, it sends an electric shock to your heart and monitors your heart, guides you through the entire CPR process. So if I'm not mistaken, she was shouting for one of that.
Yes.
And the only upsetting part is that I have been knocking at the authorities' door. Listen, get defibrillators for not only the lifeguards, but in every public space you should have one of these piece of life-saving equipment. We should
be part of the first aid safety kits.
Yes. It usually when you see it, it's on the wall, just like a fire hydrant or a first aid kit. It's going to be on the wall, and people most of the time are trained to grab it and to render assistance to somebody who needs it.
And what are some of the other equipment that you think that we should have on a regular? Because another thing that was pointed out was the need to have a good hard surface, so that when you start doing the compressions and so on, and the blood has a better chance to flow up to the brain, to get the heart restarted, all of these things. You know, what are some of the equipment that we need?
Now, along with the defibrillator, obviously, the first aid kit needs to be upgraded to one where you have portable backboards. And now you have backboards that can float, can fold. They are made of a material where the lifeguards can carry it, could swim with it, can strap the person in the water before you even get out of the water. Because, okay, like for instance, especially this case, that individual, allegedly he dove off the jetty.
Yes.
And he hit his head. So on top of near drowning, he would have some kind of a spinal injury. And as much as possible, you want to immobilize the spine, the head. You want to strap that in. And some of these backboards that we have now, it's a little bit older, a little bit dated. And you need to upgrade them so that, you know, it's a lot more portable. One of the ideas that I suggested to THA every time I have an audience is to have these floating jetties be put in Store Bay, Pigeon Point, even Mount Irving. What these floating jetties is an inexpensive way to be, if the lifeguards are able to monitor the swimmers a lot easier, as opposed to swimming from shore. They're able to walk out on these inexpensive piers. They're floating. They're made out of a floatable thing where you could pull out of the water and maintain, and they're easy to install. And you can station the lifeguards on them, you know. so that it's faster for them to, because speed is the name of the game, you know.
Yes. And I mean, and again, that was another thing that was pointed out. The fact that, you needed to respond and we should just respond quickly.
Yeah.
It wasn't, didn't matter who was doing what.
Yeah.
They all needed to be able to know what the process is, be able to bring the person,
Yeah.
get them immobilized, assess quickly, and then act,
One point I want to make before you move on, in an emergency scenario like that, your emergency first responder is trained to manage this scenario, to manage the scene. So you not seeing the lifeguards actually doing CPR doesn't mean that he's not managing the scene.
Yes, that's also true.
He's delegating the and guiding and making sure because from the time you have your hand directly on that person, you can't be the manager. You understand? So it was a blessing that they had professionals and in the medical field there where he can guide and manage. So he probably was managing the scene. Okay? Because I'm hearing a lot of what's the lifeguard doing, but why is he sitting there or standing there? He could be managing the scene. In my profession, if I have multiple things going on, I am not going to actually be in the water because I can't manage at the same time. You understand?
Yes, you need to be at an advantage point to direct persons.
That's right.
Yes.
So it might seem to the lay person that person isn't doing anything, but he could very well be managing the scene.
Now, one of the other things is that, and as you mentioned, the inexpensive equipment and so on, how costly it is for us to get up to a good enough standard that when an incident occurs, that we can respond to the best of our ability.
Well, I mean, cost is a factor, but when you compare to being sued or being or just the amount of loss that you could incur not being prepared or having the perception out there that you're not prepared, especially for visitors, outweighs the cost, So it's better you make the investment now because, especially we are channeling our resources towards tourism visitors and they require a higher expertise, Not to mention our locals, it's going to benefit from this type of education. So yes, it is expensive. Yes, you might have to source it from abroad, but the benefit of it outweighs the cost, really.
And of course, there's some also people that are saying that, maybe we needed to have more protection on the jetty and so on. I mean, give us a few.
You can't, again, hindsight again, The lifeguards I feel it for the lifeguards. I mean, I know why, because as a lifeguard, really, you're really advising people. Who's to say that the lifeguard would not say, listen, sir, don't jump off the jetty. You can't jump off, it's dangerous. Just yesterday, I was in Stobie. And the lifeguard blew his whistle. A jet ski came in. There was a lovely lady at the back of the jet ski and a gentleman driving. There was no life jackets on. So he's blowing his hand, he's telling them, signaling him to put on the life jacket, and they just give him a finger and they sped off. So I have, in my short tenure as a person working in the lifeguard industry, you could speak and shout at, you have to be disciplined enough to know in the back of your head, all you're doing is advising. All you are doing, but there is the lifeguards don't have the authority to stop people from doing anything, The most they can do is advise.
And respond in an incident.
And respond. So it's unfortunate that we try to lay blame to people who really don't have the power to stop anything at all,
Right. And of course, I mean, this might be a good point to even say that when we're on the beaches and there are lifeguards there, it is so important for us to
listen to the lifeguards.
To listen.
That's what they're there for. They're there for your safety. But, and this is where public education comes in, because public education don't understand the importance of the lifeguard. They don't understand the importance of uh, of of learning emergency response techniques. We just don't, as a society, not as a public, as a society, we tend to put these things at the back burner. I mean, I am experienced enough to in my lifetime to see incidents that I know lives could have been saved if people around had known, listen, tilt that person's head, or just massage the heart. It is so easy to learn. I can recall a few years ago there was an incident at the I think it's the waterfall at Argyle.
Yes.
The drowning. And at that time
where
I was two kids
will lost their lives. Yeah.
And the footage showed that one of them was still alive. But nobody around knew that, listen, that person is probably choking on his own tongue because he's semi-conscious. So all you need to do maybe is to tilt that person's head. All you need to do is to massage that or check the vitals. It's so important as a society for us to learn how to feed ourselves, but also to save ourselves.
And again, that brings us back to the point that, even though we expect our lifeguards to know these things and to be able to respond in these matters, there are times we are at the beach and, there are no lifeguards at the beach. Because it's perhaps a smaller, less public beach and so on. But as a public, we should know basic first response skills.
We should. Even now, the bathers, they shift. Now people bathe at the popular beaches are, well, I know that Boko has a lifeguard.
Yes.
But the popular beach, Grange is popular now.
And we've had a lot of drownings at Grange in the past.
This other bay, Grafton, the back of Grafton is very popular. So, and the lifeguards can't be everywhere at once. So we have to train ourselves. And you have to equip the lifeguards to be able to respond, because now, there's more people looking to go on the beaches. So you need to equip them to respond. They're only human.
Right. And then how is training accessible for the public?
Sorry?
Is training accessible for the public?
Training, I know that there are a lot of institutes that provide emergency first response or basic life support training. My company also does it. Unfortunately, I do most of my work in Trinidad, in the establishment in Trinidad. But I am based in Tobago. So I would love, in fact, sometimes I even do free courses. They may not get certified because that's what they call, but they get the knowledge. So the Tobago Marine Safety and Security Services, my company, we offer emergency first response training certification courses. And it can take as little as 2 evenings, we can train you up. But first aid is done, the Red Cross does a fantastic job. I know that at the YMCA, we would have partnered with the YMCA to do courses at the YMCA also. So these institutes you can go to and you'll find your training. Even yesterday, I started a rescue diver course, and the rescue diver course entails emergency first response. If I do a lot of the schools that do the dive clubs, before we put them in the water, we would do emergency first response because we require them to be able to render assistance to their body. Yeah.
And of course, we're an island, we're surrounded by water. It's so important for us to know these things and have an idea of how to respond, because things can happen.
And it's not only water. The same courses that we train is the same for if you are in an incident where you see an accident or somebody, and 80% of the time is one of your people. 80% of the time is your relative. It happens at home. Somebody choke on a piece of meat. somebody just falls ill, somebody's punctured, somebody falls and break their hand. What are these things that you would do as a first responder to render assistance? So that when the paramedics come in, or the EMT comes in, they basically know that there was somebody there to render assistance. It makes their job easy.
And it makes a chance at life easier.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But as I said, those people, they performed a miracle, because if the person heart stopped, they effectively dead, So to restart the heart, on top of that, she did not have the EAD, the external defibrillator, the automated defibrillator, I should say, and she was on point. Yeah, she was on point.
And we are eternally grateful to Miss Hospitalis, and the other one is slipping my mind right now. Miss Anna, I can't remember her last name. Okay, it's slipping my mind right now. But yes, we are grateful that they were there.
Yeah.
And the story was that they would not even intend to go to the beach on that particular day. It was a last minute decision, and they just happened to be there at the right time to give that assistance.
Yeah,
and
but the training kicked in.
Grateful.
The training kicked in. The muscle memory kicked in,
Yeah, definitely grateful. All right. Well, and thank you so much, Mr. Douglas, for being on with us and giving us your perspective, and for encouraging us, especially here in Tobago, that we need to try and get ourselves prepared, get ourselves trained, get ourselves knowledgeable about what to do when something happens. Because truthfully, we cannot prevent every single incident. And it's impossible for us to say that, oh, it's somebody else's fault why an incident happened. An incident can happen at any time for any reason possible. But the point is that we need to be able to respond when things happen.
And learn from it.
And learn from it, certainly. So thank you again. And viewers, thank you for viewing this morning. It was a pleasure being with you. I am Kandace Jackson, and we will see you again tomorrow.